Why would anybody want to learn Yiddish? Well, I do, and the purpose of this little series of videos on my channel is to tell you about why I'm so interested in Yiddish, and I hope that it's inspirational for you. I hope it's not just some information, but I hope you get excited about the idea of learning Yiddish. Let's talk about it. Many years ago, I met a friend who shared my passion for languages. I actually met him through the Guinness Book of World Records. He was in there in that year as the guy who spoke more languages than anyone else in the world, at least as far as Guinness could find. Anyhow, super interesting guy. And one of the things that he liked to say is, the world is like a beautiful castle, and people who speak only one language spend their entire lives in just one room. I think that's a great explanation. So my interest in Yiddish I think fits well with that illustration. What happened to me is I pushed open a door that said Yiddish on it. It was written in Yiddish, so I couldn't read it. I pushed open the door and I found a room that I'd really like to go into. A room where I'd really like to soak up the culture and the people and the values. There's a lot of good in there for me. And it's not just the language, there's a whole lot. I think Yiddish is a container for many wonderful things. And these are things that I want in my life. So I'm super interested in Yiddish. I bought myself some textbooks, I've started to learn how to read the alphabet, and I'm looking forward to connecting with people online in Yiddish. And I'm going to make a series of really short videos on my channel. I've been doing videos on language learning for some time now. And I'm going to do a short series strictly on the subject of Yiddish. Let me tell you a little bit about my outline, some of the things that I want to cover. I want to talk about some myths about the Yiddish language. People have ideas that Yiddish is not a very old language, not a very significant language, that it hasn't been around that long, that it's really just kind of German with a little bit of a Yiddish, a Jewish twist to it. These things aren't true. And there's a lot of interesting things to learn about the language. I want to talk about the relationship that Yiddish does have with the German language. I want to talk about dialects, because Yiddish, like any major language, has a few different variations. I'm going to talk about why I learned Yiddish, and for me, I'm going to share some of my own personal interest in this. I'm not even Jewish, and some of the really wonderful people I met online, they say, well, you know, you could still be a nice person in other ways. I'm just joking. But I am a non-Jewish person who is really interested in this language, really interested in this culture, because I think it contains values that I want in my life. That's my main deal. But I'm going to talk about that. Why would anybody want to learn Yiddish? I want to talk about learning the alphabet. I was just terrified of the alphabet, and I read other languages. I read Russian and Ukrainian, which use the Cyrillic alphabet. I can read the Greek alphabet. So I'm not intimidated by other writing systems. But Yiddish is really a different system, like Hebrew. I mean, it's just a whole different set of characters that don't bear any resemblance at all to English. And so I thought this was going to be a terrible problem, but I'm making progress and I'm really enjoying it. I want to tell you about how I do that. I want to talk about some learning resources, some of the things that I bought that I found really helpful, and they're all good for different reasons, so we'll talk about those. I'll buy them all and I'll do the review so you can find out whether they're good or not before you spend your money. I want to talk about handwriting in Yiddish, because just like in English, when you see English handwriting and then you see printed English, it's hard to see, you know, exactly what matches with what. And this is true of Yiddish too. You have to learn another variation on the alphabet to be able to do handwriting. So we'll talk about that in my series on Yiddish. I want to talk about flashcards and whether they're useful or whether they're helpful, or whether there's another way to approach the task of learning vocabulary. I want to talk about whether or not you should get a teacher to learn Yiddish. Is it essential? Is it advisable? Is it completely unnecessary? So we'll talk about that. I want to talk about typing in Yiddish. How do you get Yiddish characters on your iPhone or on your computer? What sort of fonts or tools would you need for that? I want to talk about personal connections with the Yiddish language. If you are Ashkenazi Jewish with a family history and a heritage in European Judaism, I think that there's just a bunch of great reasons to invest in learning this language. And so I want to nudge you, and I want to suggest that it's a great idea. But even if you're not Jewish, this is a big, important, interesting, valuable language, and it's worth the effort to learn it. I want to talk about what you should learn first, because I think you can easily get lost in a whole bunch of things that are not going to really serve you that well and not going to be especially important. So you want to make choices about what you should learn first. I want to talk a little bit about my interest as a non-Jewish person learning Yiddish, and I mentioned that a little bit before. I want to talk about some famous Yiddish speakers, because there are people that you absolutely know, even if you're not Jewish, or there's people you're going to recognize who spoke Yiddish or speak Yiddish today. This is a big, major language with a lot more, I think, importance than most people realize. So I want to push that a little bit. I want to talk about the relationship between the Yiddish language and religion, because there is a close connection. Because the life in Judaism it's not all segmented, where the values are one thing and there's religion over on one side and family life is all compartmentalized somewhere else, business is somewhere else, and the language and culture are somewhere else. Life is integrated. This is one of the great things that I admire about the culture that I'm interested in, is this unified integrity that there is in life, where all these things are connected together. So talk about religion and Yiddish. I want to talk about Yiddish words in English, because it's amazing how many words people know of Yiddish, even if they don't even know the Yiddish words, but we've absorbed a whole lot of words. I want to talk about Yiddish on the internet. I want to talk a little bit, I don't know much about this, but I'll dig up some information just because it's interesting, on what they call Yinglish, which is people who speak English with a really strong Yiddish flavor to it. I want to talk about some interesting points of Yiddish grammar, because it's fascinating to me. I've been a language teacher since 1994. I've been teaching foreign languages to adults, mostly Spanish. I speak a bunch of other languages, and I teach them, and I have a good understanding of grammar. For me, I don't find grammar intimidating. I find it a really helpful way for me to look at what it is I'm trying to learn and understand what I really have to put my focus on, what I have to attend to, what's going to be really strange and what's going to be, fairly accessible, what compares well with other languages that I've learned before. So I find Yiddish grammar fascinating. And finally, in my series on Yiddish language, I want to talk a little bit about swearing, and whether it's a good idea to learn swear words in Yiddish or in any other language that you're learning. And we're going to have fun. Yiddish is absolutely fascinating, and my whole goal in this short series of videos is to make Yiddish seem as fascinating as I think it actually is. I look forward to talking with you.